Godfrid of Frisia gained a coastline through imperial weakness, then discovered how quickly patronage could become accusation. His career unfolded through bargains rather than a simple march from raider to ruler. Each concession enlarged his usefulness to the Franks and increased the danger he represented. The story begins amid repeated Scandinavian attacks on the Rhine and North Sea coasts. Frankish kings could defend selected places, but rivalries repeatedly divided their military attention. Fleets exploited rivers connecting wealthy settlements, markets, estates, and monasteries. Defenders sometimes fought, sometimes fortified, and sometimes purchased temporary withdrawal. By the 880s, large mobile forces had become political actors as well as attackers. Godfrid emerged from this environment, but his earlier life remains poorly documented. Contemporary annals call him a Northman and record actions, not a dependable genealogy. In reality, his authority grew through a dangerous exchange of service for recognition. During 880 and 881, Scandinavian forces devastated parts of the lower Rhine region. Places including Cologne, Bonn, and religious centers suffered attack within the wider campaigning. The destruction threatened revenue, communications, and royal credibility across Lotharingia. Emperor Charles the Fat faced enemies on several fronts and needed the force dispersed. In 882, he confronted the Scandinavian army at Asselt. The precise location of Asselt is debated, though it lay in the Meuse region. Siege and negotiation ended without the decisive destruction later narratives might suggest. Godfrid accepted baptism and entered a formal relationship with the emperor. Charles recognized him with lands in Frisia, once associated with the Danish leader Rorik. Godfrid also married Gisela, daughter of the former king Lothair II. Baptism, marriage, and territory turned an armed outsider into an imperial dependent. The arrangement reveals Frankish pragmatism rather than helpless surrender alone. Rulers regularly used land, titles, kinship, and ritual to bind powerful men. Godfrid promised military value in a region vulnerable to further seaborne attack. His followers could become defenders precisely because they understood the raiding networks. For coastal communities, however, yesterday's attackers now collected authority under imperial protection. Recognition did not erase losses, captivity, burned property, or disrupted harvests. It changed who could claim legitimate force along the waterways. Frisia itself was not an empty reward waiting for occupation. Contained farming communities, trading sites, churches, toll routes, and established local elites. Control meant access to revenue and ships, but also obligations that annals rarely describe. Godfrid needed followers loyal enough to enforce his position. He also depended upon Carolingian acceptance, which could be withdrawn. His marriage connected him to an elite family carrying unresolved political claims. Gisela's brother, Hugh, challenged imperial authority and sought his father's former kingdom. That relationship placed Godfrid near a conspiracy before any specific guilt was proven. Power obtained through kinship now exposed him through the same connection. Meanwhile, Scandinavian attacks did not disappear after the settlement at Asselt. Frankish observers could interpret renewed violence as Godfrid's failure, complicity, or weakness. None of those possibilities required direct command over every mobile fleet. Like other frontier rulers, he occupied the space between protection and suspected collaboration. His strategic value therefore carried an expiration date. In 885, Godfrid demanded additional territories, including important wine-producing areas. The request may have appeared as leverage backed by renewed military threat. Frankish leaders treated it as evidence that accommodation had empowered an unreliable dependent. Henry of Franconia arranged a meeting at Herespich under the language of negotiation. The Annals of Fulda describe the encounter from a Frankish political perspective. At the meeting, Godfrid was killed by Frankish nobles. The sources frame the act as punishment for treachery and conspiracy. That justification served the surviving regime and cannot function as an impartial trial record. Godfrid's exact intentions remain difficult to separate from the accusations used against him. Hugh was subsequently captured, blinded, and confined, ending his immediate challenge. The coordinated actions suggest a planned removal of interconnected political threats. Imperial policy had moved from incorporation to elimination within 3 years. This reversal was not simply caused by Godfrid being culturally Scandinavian. Carolingian courts also removed Frankish rivals when loyalty appeared doubtful. His armed following, coastal base, and dynastic marriage made suspicion unusually consequential. The bargain at Asselt had solved an immediate military problem. It had also created a magnate with resources beyond ordinary dependence. Charles the Fat needed effective subordinates, yet feared any who could negotiate independently. Godfrid needed imperial legitimacy, yet his followers expected rewards and continued leadership. Those competing demands narrowed every choice available to him. Accepting baptism offered entry into Christian political society, not immunity from violence. Holding Frisia created revenue but placed him between raiders and imperial expectations. Marriage elevated his standing while joining him to Hugh's hazardous ambitions. Requests for territory demonstrated strength while inviting an accusation of extortion. The game rewarded escalation until escalation threatened the patron. Archaeology illuminates the region's networks more readily than Godfrid's individual decisions. Coins, settlement evidence, and riverine trading places show why Frisia mattered economically. Such materials cannot identify personal loyalty or prove participation in a conspiracy. Written annals preserve the political sequence but speak largely for victorious. No surviving Scandinavian account explains how Godfrid presented the agreement to his followers. Gisela's own response to the marriage and killing is likewise unrecorded. Ordinary Frisian communities appear mainly when elite conflict damaged or taxed them. Their position exposes the human cost hidden inside diplomatic settlement. An emperor could transfer authority, but fields and tolls still required daily labor. Ships needed timber, iron fittings, rope, food, and crews drawn from real households. Protection payments ultimately rested upon produce, gathered from communities along the coast. Godfrid's lordship connected those resources to a mobile military following. Removing him did not remove the geography that had made such bargaining necessary. In the same year, another Scandinavian force approached Paris. The siege of 885 and 886 showed that imperial accommodation had not ended Western attacks. Charles eventually negotiated passage and payment, damaging his reputation among Frankish elites. Godfrid's death, therefore, cannot be portrayed as a decisive solution to raiding. It solved a narrower problem, an overmighty dependent linked to a dynastic challenger. His career clarifies how Viking power entered existing political structures. It was not always established through conquest, followed by independent government. Sometimes armed mobility became landholding through baptism, marriage, and imperial need. That transformation remained reversible whenever the balance of fear changed. Godfrid possessed real authority because the emperor had recognized and resourced him. He remained vulnerable because recognition depended upon continuing usefulness and trust. The annals securely record his rise, territorial grant, marriage, demands, and killing. They cannot independently prove every charge offered to justify the final ambush. A document revealing his own negotiations would sharpen that unresolved center more than another dramatic weapon find. Until such evidence appears, the political sequence supports a cautious conclusion. Godfrid neither became a conventional Frankish count nor remained merely an external raider. He occupied a hybrid position created by crisis and destroyed by its contradictions. Frisia offered ships, revenue, and status, but never a stable refuge from imperial politics. His dangerous game ended when the empire judged its former solution more threatening than the problem.